looking back at the world from another level, you know what I mean? Just staring.
Hello.
Hi there, it's Laura. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm very glad to be able to speak with you.
I'm glad to be able to speak with you. Thank you so much for the donation. And so, yeah, I'm just going to let you guide the process and let me know what you need from me. Or, like, if you just want to jump right in and ask questions. We're going to do an hour, right? So,
Right.
okay.
Okay. I heard you speaking about like the divine feminine.
Yes.
Right, and that's so curious to me because a lot of people never really bring that up in a lot of their videos and a lot of the research that they do, and it was just so curious to me. I was wondering, could you speak a little bit about that?
About the divine feminine?
Yeah, like the energy or the concept behind it. Just whatever your perspective is. I heard you had mentioned it a few times, so I was just curious about it.
Yes. Are we recording this?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so the divine feminine energies, it's really about, the earth, Gaia, and understanding what has been suppressed and exiled and what's been targeted. This is something that has been affecting both men and women because we've been sort of separated from our true divine mother. And the divine feminine is an extension of that. It's the feminine energy that we all carry because we all have a divine blueprint of the masculine and feminine energies within us. And they are in a union together. And that is the blueprint. And it forms like a trinity because they create a child, an energetic child. So it's the mother, father together creates the child, which would be considered the Christ Sophia. And it's all like the divine masculine and feminine, but the Godhead is like that trinity. And when we sank in density from the higher worlds, dimensions 4, 5, and 6, into this lower harmonic universe, we became what's known as a 3D planet, but in actual fact, this planet was seeded with a 13-dimensional core, which made it an ascension planet. And so there are a lot of dark agendas and dark beings that are very controlling that do not want us to ascend. And so because this planet was seeded by the goddess energy, the feminine energy, in order to allow us the experiences we need to grow and return to a higher dimensional energy, because we sank and we fell, and this was an opportunity for us to get back through just nature and just connecting with the earth energies that are seeded with this ascension. They specifically targeted the feminine energy so that we wouldn't be able to really get in touch with this. And so, it's an energy of nurturing. It's an energy of regeneration. It's connected to alchemy, and it works with the divine masculine. It works with the masculine energies. The two go hand in hand, but we've lost connection with the feminine, and we've been in a very patriarchal culture. And, it's really about healing the masculine energy as well, because they've had just as much of a difficult time, being kind of like taught to be in the negative ego, in sort of a more war mentality and more in a mentality that's about domination and control. And the woman has been sort of victimized and ignored. And so there's these movements like the feminist movement that doesn't quite hit the mark of what the divine feminine is all about, because very often it's about becoming more like a man, but some of it's really good because, it helps with equal rights, of course. But, we lose touch with, what it really means to awaken the divine feminine, which is really about connecting with the earth and being very grounded with the earth and getting back in touch with the magic. Think of all the women who've been persecuted for having skills with, herbs and medicine, and they were considered witches and they were, persecuted. So, it's also about getting back in touch with that, but in a very, a divine way, not manipulative, not black magic or anything, but really being able to work with the wisdom of the earth. And so the wisdom body is something that is needing to be restored, and the wisdom is what Sophia means. And I talk about Sophia a lot. My website is Cosmic Gaia Sophia, and the more people learn about Sophia, the more they'll understand, that she's the feminine aspect of God, and the Christ Sophia is that divine union. And so my work is a lot about empowering this within men and women, and also the divine masculine, the Christ consciousness, so that those two energies can be in balance, because when we're in balance, we can't really be preyed upon. And the dark agendas can't really exist if we are in balance. It's the imbalance and the programmed and distorted versions of the masculine and feminine that keep us locked in this matrix, because that's what they're encouraging.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful. You hit so many things I could comment on, but when you talk about the feminine, a lot of guys get confused because they hear the word feminine and they think, what do you mean? Do you mean I'm gay? You know what I mean? And they don't realize that everybody, women have masculine energy and men have feminine energy. It's in both sexes. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right, and I've noticed that women seem to take in energy and male seem to project energy. Do you think that'd be correct? Or?
Yes, and it's the way we're built biologically. If you think about it, a woman carries a baby for 9 months, and it's all about containing and holding and birthing, and for men, they have the seed that they spread. And that's all about, if you just think about the actual act of, a sexual act, it says it all right there, and I won't go into it, but you know what I mean?
Right.
That's how we're biologically built, that men release and women contain energies in the womb. And so, men also have a feminine energy. So I look at it like within one physical vessel, regardless of your gender. When you're working with the masculine and feminine, the feminine is the womb and the masculine is the seeds. And when we plant seeds in the womb, we create. And that's what creativity is. And so we might have an idea or a vision or a dream that we want to manifest, and we plant those seeds in our womb or in our creativity or just in the depths of our soul, and we birth it. And it might be something we manifest, like a life change or a new partner or, a healing gift or ability or something. But when we end up planting seeds that we don't want, we end up manifesting things that we don't want. And that's why there's so many programmings and conditionings, because as long as we believe in them, we're going to be generating it into our environment as creators. And people need to be very discerning about what they choose to take in, because if you take in something that's fear-based or something that represents a future that you don't want, and you believe in that stuff, then you're planting that seed within your own being, and you're generating it into your environment. And people don't realize how much they enable dark agendas when they do this.
Yeah, I realize that most people aren't aware of how powerful they are in manifesting their own reality. They take it for granted, like how powerful a thought is, or how powerful just saying something is. You can have thoughts and say stuff, but that goes out to the universe.
Yes, and that's really what they're targeting, is our creativity. And as long as they get us to buy into belief systems or the fear stuff that they put out there, and it's different, fear stuff than exposing conspiracy. Because people sometimes think that that's all fear-based, but really it's all about liberation, because the more we know the truth, the more we can call our power back and we can create in a much clearer way. But the fear that they throw out has to do with a lot of the false flags, a lot of the stuff, surrounding war and all the scandals and all the things that distract us from being able to really look at the game that's being played. And it keeps us from really being able to see the truth. And that's what's being targeted, is so that we see something and it grabs our energy, and then we pull ourselves away from the organic ascension timeline and the soul work we need to do to get on track.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of people are getting more the hang of sort of the grasp of energy and soul work and like intention and focus and manifestation? Do you think this is something that's coming more into the general consciousness of everyday people?
I'd like to think so. Certainly in the circles that I expose myself to, I notice, a lot of openness, but, they're already have sort of read up on it. But when you look at the general masses, I think it's kind of hard to say, because I get a little bit surprised sometimes when something comes out in the news and people that I would think, would be open to being more discerning about it, seem to fall right into the belief of it. And the thing is, we have to be careful. We don't want to assume everything's a conspiracy, and we also don't want to assume everything that we hear in the news is truth, of course. And it's difficult because, the media is owned and it's very controlled. But I still find that a lot of people fall into it, or they're still stuck, in the government's sort of agendas, and they still vote people into office that really don't do anything. They promise a lot, but they don't do anything. And I think it's time to look to each other and sort of start our own. And I know it's a little bit difficult. There's definitely people that play their roles and have leadership abilities, but we all have to stand up and be leaders, and we have to be more accountable for our futures and our lives. And it's hard with 7 billion people on the planet because, obviously we need some sort of structure and some sort of, I wouldn't want to call it government, but some sort of system set up to make sure that we're all provided for, and that we contribute and we're given our needs, our needs are met. And so I think that we should divide into smaller circles amongst each other and work with the earth more and not rely on like a big system taking care of thousands of us or millions of us, because it's not going to meet everybody's needs. And there's a lot of corruption because government means control. And so I'm always shocked to find how many people are still immersed in all of that. And but I think, in general, the vibration is raising on the planet and people are expanding their hearts and they're more open now than before because it's really spreading. When you think about it, more people are talking about chemtrails and weather modification than ever before. But it's a very slow process. I would say people are definitely waking up, but it's not happening as quickly as I would like, but it's still happening. But I just don't think it's wise to look towards our governments at this point. I think, people like Bernie Sanders is hopeful, but when you're in the White House and you're dealing with all the infiltration that's happened there, it's not a very easy position to help humanity from. If we really want to help humanity, let's start from our homes, from our own personal lives. We don't have to be president to do it. If somebody can come in there and change the whole system, great. Well, Kennedy tried and he couldn't. That leads to, the threat of assassination if you go against the system. My great-grandfather warned us about the military-industrial complex, and now it's really out of control. So, yeah, I would like to think that it's happening on a much quicker level than what I'm saying, but it still seems kind of slow. But I think there has been a big ripple effect with a lot of the information that's out on the internet, except there's a lot of targeting, too, where there's a lot of disinfo being put out, which confuses people. And so we end up kind of chasing our tail. And that's why I really talk about empowerment and understanding our DNA and how the DNA connects with the earth and the earth grids and, what it really means to be on an ascension path. Instead of really fighting the system or trying to change the system, let's just really get in touch with ourselves so that we can get these upgrades, through nature and through the cosmos and the alignments that are happening, and the fact that we are in this profound window period, because that's where we're going to change the most, is being open to these upgrades instead of distracted by all this other stuff that is designed to pull us away from this transformation process.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful that you said that thing about the presidents, because your great grandfather, President Eisenhower, he was like the last guy, the last president who really had the overall oversight of the presidency before it kind of went off into secret projects and secret this and secret that. Wasn't he the last president who really had everything together, as far as over control, or
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's yeah.
I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, you would answer it better than I. Over the years, I've just always heard that he was like the last guy who, he was the last president who really ran stuff, and then after that, everything became like kind of like more of a puppet show type deal.
Right. And that's true. Kennedy was assassinated. He would have been a good president, but he's a part of the Illuminati families, and he wasn't going to be able to get away with it very easily. The presidency is owned by the CIA, so it's very difficult for anybody running for president to not have that influence. And there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of sleeper agents and Manchurian candidates that might appear to be benevolent, but they don't realize that they have alters or other sides of themselves that are being triggered. And I know that's a lot for somebody who's hearing about this for the first time. You might want to see that movie, Manchurian Candidate, and be open-minded to the fact that kind of stuff is true. So Eisenhower warned us because that was right at the brink of when these things were going to take over, because the Second World War wasn't really won. When Project Paperclip happened, all the Nazi scientists moved into America, and they brought all these mind control projects in, and weather modification started, and MK Ultra, got amped up, and we've been dealing with a whole other level of war that is in disguise that a lot of people don't even notice. It comes through the media and the television and the chemtrails and all these different things. It's like a very hidden war, but it's right in front of our face as well. And people should be waking up to this by now. And if they're not, they're in absolute denial, because if you look up, our skies are being sprayed, and what could they possibly be spraying that's okay? And for people to say it's contrails is ridiculous at this point. And it's hard, the awakening process is painful and difficult, and you can't really blame people for wanting to turn the other way, but it doesn't mean that it means doom and gloom when we do face these things. It means that we have to understand how to raise our vibration beyond it and get our power back so that we're not the victims of it. And if we ignore it, that's not going to help anyone.
Yeah. You want to hear something that I realized is humans are so caught up in whatever they're caught up in, and they don't realize what's going on. Like, I was looking, this is going to sound silly to you probably, but I was looking last summer, one of my neighbors had a cat, and the cat was laying in the driveway. And I was laughing. I was like, oh, look, he's out there with his peoples, laying in the driveway. And the cat was, like, soaking up the sun. And I thought to myself, the cat's doing a sun meditation in broad daylight in the middle of the street. And nobody even notices it. But if a human did that, everybody would think there was something wrong with them. You know what I mean? If a human was out there doing something spiritual with the sun on the ground, everybody would laugh and say he was nuts. See, that's the kind of world we're in. You can't heal yourself in public. Meditation, yoga, anything that's sort of, kind of like down, grassroots type of thing. Everybody thinks that's weird, not. But that's what really gets you to be human,
Right. Yes, totally. And, it's hard because they know how to manipulate the way that we are sort of wired, as humans. We are biological beings that have needs, we have needs for love and acceptance and security. And, these programmings really make it difficult when you're an awakened being to feel happy to be awakened. It's a painful thing to be awakened because people project on you. They call you crazy. You feel isolated. You feel targeted. And it's like being on a spiritual path isn't all the light and fluff that people expected, It's like, yeah, we're connecting to God's source or feeling into the earth. But when you're dealing with humans that are programmed and lost in the matrix, they look at us like there's something seriously wrong. And we could be doing that back to them. And maybe some people are when they're calling them sheeple and, calling them stupid and ignorant. But awakened people or beings tend to be very filled with love and compassion. And so it's hard because it's not like we're getting it back, only amongst each other, but not from, humanity. It really depends though. And so I really encourage people to not say the word sheeple and to not look at everybody like, they don't have the capacity to wake up, because they come out of the woodwork sometimes where you least expect it. You might find somebody very open-hearted who's very immersed in the matrix, but they have an open mind and an open heart, just like hanging out with family members, and maybe not everybody's open to what you're about, but there might be that one cousin or that one, family member that is, and we got to give everybody a chance and just be ourselves. And don't let those that don't get you bother you. Just keep flowing with it and keep working with it, and you'll create synchronicities that bring people to you that are of like mind. But we're always going to have to shuffle through those that, don't fully get it, and that's okay. Don't let it stop you in your tracks, because I have a lot of clients that tell me, I can't talk to anybody. Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but it's like, don't give up, because the few that do say that or do that, you're planting a seed, and you don't need to hang out with them. Just keep flowing, keep being yourself, because you can only end up manifesting the things that are in sync with that. But it requires a bit of patience. It's better than not being yourself and conforming or being blocked, and it's very liberating to be yourself and not care what others think. It doesn't mean that you don't care about the way you act, or that you can just be mean and not care. It's just validate yourself and love yourself for the truth that you hold and the fact that you're an authentic, unique being. And if people don't like it, that's not your problem.
Absolutely. I was doing a lot of research into like sort of the 60s and 70s mind expansion type of thing, and I came across people like Ram Dass, Terrence McKenna, a lot of the guru type people that were around at that time, and they were saying a lot of what a lot of the people are saying now, but it seems like there was a major gap between the 80s up until recently. In the last, it seems like the last 5 years, people have just started talking again like they were at that era. It seems like there was, for so many years, people were like in a corporate hold almost. Does that sound right, or am I kind of, I don't know. Can you?
Yeah, no, it does sound right.
Yeah, it seems like the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, for some, right after like the mid 70s, it just seems like the corporations just, put the country in a headlock. It's just like now people are just starting to get back to where talking again like how they were, talking 40, 50 years ago. Things are starting to loosen up a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because it's gotten, real obvious, and a lot of kids, growing up are realizing that they don't have the opportunities that the generation before us had, because all these corporations were looking to recruit people, and and now you try and get a job, and it's really hard to get a job even after getting a 4-year college education. A lot of those jobs are taken, or you have to work you have to kind of compromise a lot. It's very hard for people to just start their own thing, but that's really where it's at, and that's why embracing our own uniqueness and living on our own terms and not being too attached to the money system and understanding that the universe is abundant and it will provide for us. We have to kind of drop the survival energy, because we've been taught that security means that we have a lot in our bank account. Most people don't know how to feel comfortable with with little in their bank account without feeling, like they're in doom or they're in trouble. But abundance is something that's always available. It's just our thought forms can block it when we start to project too much on ourselves, because it doesn't look exactly how we want, or it's not how it looked for our parents. And, we're given all these expectations to be successful, and we have to kind of determine what success means for us, not what it means for anybody else. Sometimes for people it's just happiness and freedom and the ability to travel and have fun, but if they're locked in the programming, even if they do make a lot of money, those people aren't necessarily happy. They're doing it because they were told to do it. We got to understand, what is our passion, what makes us happy. Let's get back to what's real, and let's support each other. People complain about people that are helping the world when they charge something for a podcast. It's like, oh, how can you be charging? It's like, well, did you go to a movie last week and did you pay for it? It's like, let's support the things that count and not criticize, people that need to make money for what they offer humanity that's positive. Yep. So then if we can direct our attention to them and we can do the same sort of thing and we can earn money from it, then we starve the stuff that makes the world, enslaved and polluted. And then we can rely on each other, and then eventually we can wean ourselves off of the money system and find a new way. But there's just a lot of madness and chaoticness in how people view one another. I mean, I know there's a lot of New Age deceptions and false channeling, and people overcharge and this and that, but, I mean, people got to return to integrity and, really, finding a way to be fair, so that if you are going to still be in the money system, which most of us can't avoid, that you're doing it in an appropriate way so that you're not being a New Age person that's still carrying old programming from the old paradigm, where you're taking advantage of people and going too far. And so, it's just hard because some people give everybody else a bad name, just like the word God, religion ruined. And the word Jesus Christ got ruined by religion, and even the word New Age it doesn't sound so good anymore because it's been ruined, and even the word ascension, nobody really knows what it means. So, it's just important to have integrity so that we can purify the energies and really remember, what the true definitions are and what we're really trying to achieve here as a human species, and we got to get our priorities straight because it's not looking so good.
Yeah, I live in Michigan. In the area I live in, like, I look at people, and I'm sure when I was their age, I was like this too. I'm 30 now, and I'm looking at people that are, like 15, 20, and I'm studying them. I'm looking at them, and it seems like they're so caught in like the illusion of wealth, cars, iPods, all their stuff they're into, all the technological stuff. It's just like money has turned into like the only way to produce happiness. Like this technology that they have to have money for it. And it's like you never hear of anybody going to meet somebody at the park. It's like they meet people in websites and like these websites they go to and stuff, and it's just like human beings have lost the simple things, you know. Just being outside at the beach or something. When you see people there, it's like all they're doing is playing on their iPod.
Yep. Everywhere I go and everywhere I look, everybody's immersed in their phones. And, I mean, the most important thing is that we connect with nature. I mean, nature is what holds the ascension energies. And if we're stuck in this technological world, we're going to miss out. I mean, you got to find a balance between technology and nature, because technology can be very, very helpful, but when it's all about mind control and sending frequency manipulations through the electronics, I mean, people got to understand that they got to shut that stuff off every once in a while, or else it's just going to take over. And this is what transhumanism is. There's all these scientific breakthroughs they talk about and all these great advancements, but it's really replacing our ability to tap into our spiritual abilities, because it ends up replacing it. And then we get dumbed down by technology because we're no longer, focusing on developing ourselves. We're just using a technological device instead, and it makes it easy. We could be enhancing our abilities as spiritual beings, but instead, we're locked into these technologies, and and the thing is, technology mimics us, in our greater abilities. We're the most advanced technology, and if we don't start really understanding that, technology is going to take over, and we're going to lose our sense of soul and connection with nature.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate to that. Like I notice stuff like that all the time, and it's kind of funny because even me, like I said, I'm 30. It's moving so fast, even from what it was 10 years ago, in the early 2000s or whatever. It's it's catapulting.
Yeah, it is. But there's so many technologies being cut from us. They have so much advanced technology that they haven't told us about, and we've got the internet and iPods and iPhones and all that kind of stuff. But there's so much they're using, and they only give us a little bit. And the thing is, we don't necessarily want these advanced technologies until we develop ourselves spiritually, but they're slowly pulling us into transhumanism and giving us little bits at a time, instead of helping us to see like what they really are using behind our backs that are, geared towards the manipulation of us so that we don't achieve the DNA upgrades that we need. So eventually they're going to expose all these hidden technologies, but that's already after we're addicted to the technologies they're giving us, because there's no support on our spiritual path. The school systems don't support it. Our governments don't support it. Nobody talks about it. The only thing in the mainstream is either religion or government, and religion is corrupt, and government is cut off from spirituality, and so we got nothing, to really look towards. That's why we got to learn to look towards ourselves, and we got to trust that everything we need is within us, because, where else are we going to go? Because everything external isn't really working. I mean, there is some that is working for us, but if we don't first have the discernment within ourselves, it's very easy to fall into a trap.
Right on. And as we speak, like the technology, like they're even talking about they're cloning people. Now, I know you've spoken on the concept of Mars. That's very interesting. You've spoken on stuff going on Mars. I've heard a lot of other people talk about that. Do you think that's a big thing right now? Like there's all kinds of cloning and stuff going on up there?
Yeah, and here, there's thousands of underground bases all over the world, and they conduct all sorts of crazy experiments and super soldier programs, hybridization programs, cloning, and it's happening off planet too. I have never been to Mars. I was recruited to go, but I chose not to. And who knows what that would have all looked like. I mean, a lot of people speak about it. Some people say they've been there, and they describe things that they've seen. But then, certain technologies can mimic certain environments, and so it's hard to say. But yeah, there is cloning, but there's also cloning of physical reality, virtual reality, and they can create synthetic environments that don't even exist, and they could say it's Mars, so it's really hard to know what's real. And so the best thing that anybody can do is have an open mind and to stay flexible. The minute you fix your beliefs and you get rigid about it and you stand up for it and you don't allow yourself to be open to anything else, that to me is a greater danger than anything, so, because a person can believe something for a long time and then realize, oh my gosh, that was a lie. And they might not ever want to accept that. And they might stay stubborn and stay fixed to whatever belief they had. But if we're flexible, then, we can still work on our discernment and, expanding our psychic energies or increasing them. And then it gives us the opportunity to change our mind if we need to, without looking like we're trying to promote something and stand by a truth that might not be a truth. So when I speak and I share what I share, I tell people to take what resonates and to leave the rest, and that, I share what I know to be truth beyond a reasonable doubt, but I'm open to it not being completely accurate so that I can alter it and adjust it. But I share it because I've been given enough evidence to feel good enough about sharing it, but at the same time, I have to stay flexible too,
Yeah, and you've been very outspoken. I went on YouTube and I saw you've done many things to help people, and I think that's pretty courageous of you, to step out into the spotlight and give your views and share your views. And for some people who might say, "Oh, she said she was invited to go to Mars," a lot of people are going to think that's crazy. But most people have no idea in the world what kind of stuff goes on out there.
Right.
They have no idea. It's like, I can totally, I've even heard stuff that they've been on Mars since the 50s. I don't know if you ever heard anything like that before, but I was reading that there have been people like the moon program that they sold us on television back in '69. Like that was kind of not real. I think maybe they had been to the moon, but that was kind of fake what they showed us.
Right. NASA shows us a facade and a fake version. That's all there to convince us that we're making some sort of progress. But there's been a secret space program for a long time. We've been on Mars for a long time. Mars used to be inhabited. Mars, I believe, started in the 40s. But definitely in the 60s, that's where a lot of the projects were teleporting kids to Mars. And but at the same time, we got to understand that there might be false Mars energies and true Mars experiences. But I would say that most of the whistleblowers I know and the colleagues I know, I feel like they went to the true Mars, because this is the secret space program. The secret space program is all over the place. They're on a lot of planets. They've got major technologies and they work with off-planet beings, and so they back-engineered all these crafts too, and they've got technologies that people, they have the capacity to open stargates. They have artificial stargate technology. They have quantum access technologies that can look into the past and into the future. So, but the synthetic realities might just be how they train people to prepare for Mars. But I definitely know that there is colonies there. But I can't prove it, But I know so many people, Andrew Bashago, Captain K, there's Michael Rice, that have actually been there, that all their stories connect, and they didn't even know each other before they started sharing the stories. But then another whistleblower came through named Bernard Mendez, and he started talking about the technologies that create synthetic environments. And so that's when we all started to, or at least me and Andrew Bashago, were like, okay, that is a possibility, but we also know that they've been refurbishing the ruins on Mars, and we have the capacity to travel via teleportation because of these advanced technologies off planet. But the thing is, they're trying to create a whole artificial reality. They're doing that with the Earth too, and with cloning. So, that's just another thing to look at.
Yeah, I've been aware of the concepts of time, that the past and the future. It's kind of it's an illusion. Everything's here in the now, and so I can totally see with the concept of quantum physics. All this talk about interdimensional bending and stuff. I can totally see how there could be people coming in and out of different realities. Like the same people that are coming in and out of our reality now can be coming in and out of the 1950s or the future 2050s. Like the same groups, just time looping almost.
Say that last part. I'm sorry.
I was thinking maybe people could be time looping, like you know, coming in and out of where we're at now and the 1950s, what we perceive as the 50s, or the future. Like they could be interdimensionally going through different, just traveling through time, doing their experiments and stuff.
Yes,
Like,
definitely. And we are in a time loop, and that's why time travel is possible. But when we move beyond sort of time and into these higher dimensions, we recognize that there is no real linear time, and the whole energy of ascension is sort of more in a spiral than something linear.
yeah, yeah. The past and the future are both different perspectives of the now. Like if somebody wanted to prove to me the past exists, there's no way they could do it. Even if they show me an antique, they're showing it to me in the now. You,
Right.
you know what I mean? They're like, the past really
That's
does
cool.
the past really does exist. I'm like, we're always going to be in the now. You.
Right. I mean, it's like looking at a tree. Some of them are thousands of years old, but we're still seeing it in the now. And yes, we do age. I mean, we're born babies and we do grow up, so there is time connected to that. But it's also a cycle, just like a flower. You plant the seed, it blossoms, and then it dies, and it goes back into the earth, and a new seed's planted, and it grows again. So it's in cycles. And the cycles, can also be like spirals of consciousness as well that are moving upward and evolving. And so a circle completes itself, and there's wholeness with a circle rather than a line. And so we can see everything in the now, and the past is more about something that we can access, and the future is something that we can perceive, but it all intersects in the now, or else there's no creativity. If we're too much in the past or in the future, we're not creating. We're scattered. And so everything happens in the now because everything that is in the now is built from the past, and everything that's in the future depends on what the health is of whatever is in the now. We can't manifest a positive future if we're not in balance, or if we're not healthy, or if we're not owning everything that we've always been. But we have to bring it into present time and not look at it like it happened a long time ago. So when we look at a tree and we say that it's thousands of years old, it doesn't vanish. It's still there. It's still present. But it holds those rings. It holds the energies. Anyway, yeah, we could go into all sorts of weird areas with these sort of philosophical, deep. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm absolutely feeling what you're saying about the tree, and even going a step further, even when it comes to like concepts, like philosophical concepts, or different perspectives and ideas. Many of the concepts we got are very, very old, and people don't realize they're still with us today. They're still here in the now,
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, I was looking at like ancient Egypt and some of these much older civilizations, and it's so crazy because the more far back, if you try to look from a linear perspective, like with the time thing, the more advanced they were is usually the oldest they were. The newer ones seem to be the less advanced for some reason when it comes to civilizations. The ancient.
The newer ones less advanced.
Well, when you look at like the pyramids in Egypt, and you talk about Atlantis, Atlantis being under the ocean and stuff, and that being before Egypt, or I don't know, some people think Egypt was still part of Atlantis. It seems like the high technology civilizations existed, thousands and thousands of years ago, and by the time it got to like ancient Greece and close to where we are now, a lot of the technology that they had, they lost it somehow, or the just the building techniques. Like people today say they can't do the pyramids. It's just a lot of things seem to have fallen out of the hands of the guide and rulers of civilization.
Right. A lot of the planetary cataclysms threw the planet off, and so the alignments were way off. We haven't been in alignment with the galactic plane, and so it's kind of like we've been in a huge rehabilitation, and we entered the dark ages because even the pyramids weren't in alignment anymore with the constellations and that they were meant to be aligned with, and so it's been very difficult. But now that we're back in alignment, a lot of people are bringing back these technologies and this awareness, and so many people have been on a path where their mission is very strong and clear, and they're able to bring back the understanding of pyramid technology and, what it means to, really work with the Earth. And the 13th sign, the galactic zodiac, is back on board. Since 2010, the 13th sign has come back. And, the 13 is a huge deal, connected with our DNA. We're 12-strand DNA, but when we connect with the 13, it brings us, directly connected to the 0-point energy. And then the 0-point energy is a window to the other universe, to Andromeda. And the ascension period is really Milky Way and Andromeda becoming one again. So when we hit that 13, it means that we're connected to the 0-point. And now that the 13th sign is being acknowledged, that's a really good thing, because the sun is passing through the 13th sign now. Before it wasn't. It started to in 2010.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people talk about, as far as genetic memory goes, like a lot of people have been having weird dreams, and a lot of spooky stuff's been going on. Maybe I shouldn't say spooky, but a lot of I guess very revealing things have been going on with people, where they're starting to remember who they were in what we would call past lives, if there is such a thing, or simultaneous parallel lives, or people are starting to get more awareness of these type of things as the DNA. Whatever it's doing I'm not sure what the DNA is doing, but it seems to be activated more now.
Yes, and that's going to increase, but it's also very targeted. So it depends on each individual and how strong they are and how much they're able to, allow nature and what's happening cosmically to give them those upgrades. And, kids are being born way more advanced than ever. So that's really where it starts. But then we have vaccinations, and then they get put in schools, and they're misunderstood, and they're given medications, and so that's what's got to stop. We have to be more responsible as grown-ups, and letting them guide us more and help us to understand how they learn and what they're bringing in, instead of trying to control them and silence them and medicate them. And every parent has a choice to say no. So mostly when a child has a learning disability, they usually have an amazing gift that they're trying to bring through. And we just project onto them. I don't. I mean, I'm just saying society. And I was one of those kind of kids. I was always projected upon. You're crazy, or you have learning disabilities. And it's like all the things that you share are just way too out there. And now it's like I finally caught up with it, and I've made a living from it. And it makes sense to a lot of people. So it's like, okay, I wasn't so off.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I was going to elementary school, like in the early 90s. I mean, it was like a joke. Like the kids, some of the kids. One kid, I remember, he brought a pack of cigarettes to school, and he was on the playground smoking cigarettes. And kids were slashing teachers' tires and cussing them out and calling them. It was like, I mean, this was more like the inner city, but it was crazy. It was just like, it was like, this isn't school, And nobody learned anything. There was more. All it seemed like it was a place where people got into fights. It didn't make any sense. I was like, I couldn't believe that was the public education system. Even in the inner city, it was just crazy.
Yeah, it really is. It's so hard to raise kids in the world right now. I'm having a tough time with my kids because, we have to go through the school systems, and I got to encourage them to do it. But at the same time, I don't agree with it either, and they don't either. And it's just like, it's just so frustrating, But
yeah. I mean, but it seems like the schools educated people a lot differently, because, I mean, at least the public schools, because I was reading some yearbooks, and this may sound, kind of far out to some people, but I was reading some yearbooks from the 1950s. I saw at the antique shop, and I realized they were teaching law and calculus and Latin in high school in the 50s in the United States. And I was thinking, I'm like, they don't even teach that at the city colleges now. I was like, you'd have to be at a university, to learn Latin and to learn law. They're not going to teach you law at city college,
Right.
It just seems like the educational system, is not nearly what it once was. It's completely been transformed. Before they made people who were like highly intelligent and leaders, and now it's just like what can you do? It's like, even when you get the degrees, you really can't do anything with them in today's world. You
can't, right?
People go to India just to get jobs now.
Yeah, it's really a mess. It's really a mess. And that's why we really need to upgrade our DNA, because that's our only real hope. Because to try and fit in with this system and to make at work is going to digress us. It's not going to help us because there's really nothing that's being offered that has to do with how we're progressing or what our potential is. It's trying to keep us trapped, and we're outgrowing it. And we got to realize that, lack of opportunity might be like a blessing in disguise, so that we can just start our own thing. And we got to figure out a new way to create abundance, and not rely on the money system. And it's really difficult, because it's hard to get land. It's hard to not, have to deal with all the different laws and taxes and the amounts of money we have to come up with just to, have a spot with Mother Earth to be able to create. It really is such a difficult place to be. And as much as I share and I have a real positive message, I have a hard time just about every day with this reality, I have to say. But, I do know what we're capable of, and I keep my attention on that, and I keep working to empower it, and I'm just grateful I have a voice because I would go nuts if I didn't. And it's great that, you're doing what you're doing because, it really, helps because think of all the kids that are being given antidepressants or anti-anxiety pills. The thing is we got to start to honor our reaction to the world, and start to, really give ourselves more credit for feeling what we feel instead of looking to get rid of it because there's something wrong with us. We're in a very imbalanced world, and of course we're going to get depressed and angry. And so let's work with that. Let's not silence it. Let's listen to the deeper messages that are trying to come through because that's where we find our mission and our purpose. But if we silence it, then we're just being zombies in a way. We're submitting to the control. But if we can look into it and honor it and understand it, it's going to hold the keys to what our purpose and our mission is. And that's what I did. I just got really in touch with them. Like, well, why are you so pissed off and depressed? And so I was like, well, you got a big mission. And okay, well, let's pull it out. What is it? And, and I was asking myself these questions when I was a kid. And then I just refused the medications. And I think I tried them, here and there. And they really did a number on me. They didn't work. And I mean, they worked, but they numbed me, And I was like, okay, after about a week of it, I was like, no, I don't think so. And I'm not saying, it's terrible if anybody's doing that. It can help you for a little while, but, it's giving your power away. It's saying that your feelings are invalid, And one of my favorite quotes is, it's no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a sick society. So, if you don't feel well-adjusted, then, bring out all the goodies. What are your treasures? What are your gifts? What have you turned into a problem? Or what are other people projecting onto you that is such a problem? And it's just hard to watch, because people get addicted to a lot of the medications too. So.
Yeah. I always thought of medication. A lot of people don't think of it as you think of it, but I think of it the same way. It's just a drug. Like it's the same thing as cocaine or pot or whatever is out there on the streets. It's the same thing. They see a kid and they look at all these drugs they got in a warehouse somewhere. So they said, let's prescribe them with these drugs. The next thing they know, they got them messed up on the drugs. They're just legal,
Yeah, exactly. And it's bad.
Right.
Too bad.
Right. And parents don't realize they got warehouses full of Ritalin and Adderall and all these different drugs, and they got to find a way to push it, to sell it. They're not going to sell it on a street corner because they're doctors, so they're going to sell it out of the doctor's office. and so they'll tell you anything you want. You got hyperattention deficit, blah 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 blah. And to me, it seems like no, the children are just having a really weird reaction to a really weird world, a messed up world,
Yeah, and if we don't feel it, then how can we heal it? And if we don't step into the solution, and we silence it, then I don't know. It's just not a good thing. The whole system has to change, or parents have to really decide that they're going to do it themselves in homeschool because, it's scary what your child can turn into, and then they get more detached from the parents and they get parents' guidance, and they fall into the peer pressure stuff, and then they listen to teachers, and then it's just parents have to take more of a stand. And it's not necessarily about fighting the system, but it's about saying, hey, I don't need to expose my child to this. I don't need, to put them through this. I can listen to them. I can understand them and guide them and make sure that they are following their heart. My mom eventually did that with me, and she didn't understand it at first, because of the system and just the way that it projects on you if you go that route. But she eventually was able to because she started to recognize that, people are going to listen. People are crying out for this kind of stuff. And then, part of her was like, yeah, maybe I'm kind of crying out for this kind of stuff too. And you can't limit yourself by what other people think, because those projections are going to stop you in your tracks, and that's what the medications are, except you're going to take it as a pill. So it's either other people's opinions, a medication, or acting like the things that are too out there for people is a problem. And then you end up projecting on your own gifts and abilities, and then it ends up poisoning you because it gets internalized and it never gets expressed. And that's a whole other set of challenges. So, just the best gift we can give ourselves is to just free ourselves and thrive in that freedom. And don't worry what others think, because they're going to feed off of you if you let them get to you. Because if you let them get to you, it means that they're winning. They're taking your energy. But if you just say, hey, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be happy whether you like it or not, then you protect your energy field. But you don't want to do it in a way that's destructive to you or anybody else. It's just, we're sovereign beings. We deserve it. And we all have our unique energies and roles to play. I mean, imagine if the animal kingdom did this. If you started to control the animal kingdom and medicate the animal kingdom, or if a squirrel wanted to be a dolphin and went through a change, went under the knife and got surgery to become a dolphin, well, I don't know if they could treat squirrel, but nature is nature, it knows exactly what it's doing. And look at the diversity. There's more species than we can even imagine, and they're bizarre, and people can't even handle their extraterrestrials. But it's look at our oceans, look at the crazy creatures on this planet. We have the most unusual looking creatures, way more unusual than any extraterrestrial.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, nature knows what it's doing, and it's wild, but it's ordered. It's the web of life. And when we, on a soul level, can be unique and be true to ourselves, then we become a part of a larger web of life where we all are able to utilize our roles together. Now, there is oneness, but to me, oneness is diversity and harmony. It's all of us being ourselves and harmonizing with each other, and not judging or criticizing or being racist or being biased or, bias is different because maybe that's a family member or a loved one, but but it's being fair to each other and saying, I love and honor you for you being you, and I'll let you be you if you let me be me. And if we could just do that, then we all play our role, and then it's all going to work together just like the web of life in nature. That's what nature's teaching us. There's no greater teacher than nature. And my background's in wilderness education, and I learned everything I need to learn from nature. I was like, nature knows what it's doing, but it's difficult, too, because nature, you see little bunny rabbits get dragged off by, a predator. It's not, there's a lot of duality in nature, but at the same time, it regenerates, it's self-sustaining. And there isn't an instinct about it being a problem in nature, because it sort of recycles itself and grows back again. So, but the higher dimensional planes are different. Even nature's different. As long as we're in duality, we're going to be in a world where nature is sort of dualistic, but yet nature teaches us, because we're on a multidimensional planet. And everything that we're witnessing is showing us, who we are. Nature is helping us to understand our soul and the qualities within our soul. But the things that are off, like pollution in the waters or spraying in the skies or exploitation of the Earth's resources, this is a direct reflection of how unhealthy we are as a humanity. And when we heal our elements and clear and purify our inner elements, because we all have earth, air, fire, water energies, then the Earth has no choice but to respond. And when we get more inside our internal peace, we recognize that even the dangerous creatures out there, will treat us, will not, will respond differently to us. I mean, in my wilderness journeys, even scorpions and snakes, I was perfectly comfortable around them. Now I'd be a little bit freaked out because it's been a long time, but.
That's so amazing. You said you had went on during your journey you had came across animals that most people would be terrified of, but you were able to find some sort of peace and harmony around them.
Well, it's not like I was, like snuggling up next to them or anything, but it's like you just give it respect and you sort of telepathically communicate with it, and the thing is, there's death, rebirth, regeneration, and decay in nature, and there's a web of life, and we have to recognize our part in that and how we're connected with that. And, when we can be in that sort of oneness with nature, we can tune into each animal and creature and our environment and be very adaptable and flexible with what's around us instead of let our belief systems get the best of us. So when we see something and we, feel fear, they start to fear us, because our vibration is not at peace and they don't know if they're going to be attacked by us, and so everybody's kind of like, so I found sort of a way to, really be at peace. And you just sort of like, if you see everything as sort of like an aspect of yourself, then you can get more comfortable with it. But the thing is, most people aren't comfortable with themselves. So they don't know how. And they have to understand, people need to understand that fear is really parts of ourselves that we haven't gotten to know yet. That's why we feel fear, because there's more of us that we need to get to know. Because if we fully were working from all that we are, if we were creating in the wholeness of all that we are, we wouldn't have fear, because we would understand that, we can pretty much handle anything. Our DNA is so advanced. But when we feel fear, it's because we know that there's something that we're missing and we don't feel safe. So we want to use fear as a tool instead of judge fear. Like, oh, you're not supposed to have any fear. It's like, well, that's a lot to ask of a human, to not have any fear, or to then all of a sudden judge it because a person feels fear. It's like, use the things that feel like a negative as a tool. Let it help you to dig deeper into yourself instead of condemning yourself for feeling it or judging it, because then you're going to be in a loop of judgment, which is just as negative. So I just really practice like working with the fear, and when I, let it teach me more about myself and it helped me to uncover more of who I am, I felt a lot more safe no matter what I was surrounded by. Even when I was surrounded by dangerous people, I would work with the fear and anxiety that certain things brought up in me, and I would let it open me up to something greater in me that knows how to handle it. And sometimes that means, having a boundary or walking away and getting the heck out of there. But you don't have to do it in fear. You just do it because you know it's what's best. The thing is, when we can really get in touch with ourselves, we can hear our inner voice. We can hear our intuition. We can see psychically. So we know how to navigate much better. But a lot of people are in their heads trying to figure it out and trying to strategize. And the thing is, we got to merge our heart and our mind so that our bodies, and our whole system can guide us. Because our bodies will alert us. But if we don't pay attention, or we just do it because everybody else is doing it, or we judge our fear, or think it's bad, then we're going against what our body is trying to tell us. And so, use fear as a tool. It can help you to be cautious, but it can also help you to expand more into all that you are. So there's a place for everything. We got to embrace the negative and positive instead of be so polarized, because we're only in duality when we choose sides. We got to embrace all of it to be able to really navigate. Choose fear, choose love, and bring them together so that they can birth something, which is maybe cautious, being grounded, being practical, being wise. If you run towards everybody you're attracted to and form a relationship, most of those relationships aren't even going to work out. You have to be discerning. You have to have wisdom. You have to, look out for the red flags. That's what's going to protect us. And same thing with the world. The news that we read, the people that we vote into office, don't just listen to what they're saying. What is your body trying to tell you? It's like, I can pretty much guarantee that most of the stuff you're listening to is a bunch of BS if it's coming from, I think Bernie Sanders, though, sounds pretty positive, but I'm not here to tell people what to do. The best thing I can do is help them to be an advanced human being, to help them step into an advanced human vessel to work on that advancement, because then everything else will fall into place. But if we don't know ourselves and we're unbalanced and we're giving our power away, then we're being played and we're being controlled. And it's going to be impossible to make positive decisions for ourselves and this planet if that's what's happening.
Yeah, no doubt. And some people are just so afraid. It's kind of funny because people are so afraid to have their own voice. They try to attack the people who have their voice. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody can't do what they really want to do and they see you being happy, expressing your knowledge, then they try to attack you to make up for what they're afraid of.
Totally. Exactly.
Have you had that where people you probably didn't even know, or people you may kind of know, they have no idea what's going on, but they just kind of attack you and say, "Oh, you're crazy," but they don't know they don't know if it's true or not. They're just saying that because they can't handle what you're saying.
Yes, and I do get a lot of that, but yep, it's just kind of part of the territory, and but we plant seeds, and whatever is too much for somebody, that again, it's their problem. we just have to do our thing. I look at it almost like we're in a parade and we just throw things out to the crowd. But if we pay too much attention to who picks it up and eats it, pretending it's not candy but maybe like something healthy, it's going to drive us nuts. And I used to let it get to me, like, what other people would say, all the comments on YouTube and all the criticisms. I'd be like, ow, like, gosh, what's wrong with everybody?
Right.
And I was like, what? Don't pay attention to that, because, sometimes I'll comment and I'll try and be constructive in my comments, but we have to see ourselves as a resource, and guides, and we're encouraging people. And if they don't like it, I call it the pea soup effect. It's kind of like you're creating mini exorcisms. You're helping them to rid themselves of their demons, and they're not going to like it, because whatever beings they're attached to, or whatever control agendas they're attached to, those are the things that are fighting against us. But their true self, their higher self, their deeper self really appreciates us, but they're kind of, masking it. They're letting that part of themselves, like, hide. They're just in this other shell of a person. And, we got to crack that shell, but it doesn't mean that they're going to like it. Well, and the thing is, we don't want to overdo it either. It's just plant a seed, throw out the pollen, blow on that dandelion, and whoever it hits, great. And whoever it doesn't, maybe next time around. But, a lot of families fight. A lot of people create a lot of chaos and disturbance because, people don't see eye to eye. But, we got to remember to not lose the heart connection. It's not worth the battle sometimes, just keep the heart energy alive, and maybe try again next time. And if it doesn't work, let it go and stay in the heart and then try again next time. And eventually, it might catch on. But the thing is, people don't necessarily need to understand conspiracy to be awakened. It's just really important that they stay open on a heart level to the high energies that are coming in, because eventually, they'll get upgraded enough to be able to see the lies. But if we end up fighting with them, or we isolate ourselves, or we feel it's hopeless, then, those connections can get really challenged, and we need to unify. That's the priority. So we got to be patient with people if they're not going to choose to understand certain things, that we still focus on the unification part. I mean, my mom and I decided we will not talk about conspiracy because we just end up fighting, and we realize it's not worth it. So I just encourage people that are, the type that spread information or are open to this stuff when you're trying to awaken your friends and family, don't let it destroy you, don't let it destroy your connection. If you can help it, because the much stronger energy that we need to focus on is unification, because that increases the immune system of the planet, which helps to rid this planet of the parasites and the germs and, all the different things that are trying to take over. I mean, they already have taken over, but it helps us to rise above it and to transmute it and to release ourselves from it.
Right on. And Laura, we've been talking for about an hour now, and you said some amazing stuff, and I'm just blown away. It's not often that I talk to other people who have as much insight as you. I'm the guy out there trying to tell people who don't know. I'm thankful that I'm talking to somebody who is in the know and has a lot of powerful stuff. I'm looking forward. Hopefully we can do this again in the future. And
I'd love that. Just thank you for doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No. Hopefully, I'll contact you again, and we can do this once a month or something. Just to put it out there.
I'd love that. I really enjoy talking to you, and I would love that, because I'm all about getting the information out there and supporting what you're doing, and we all need to just work together, because it's gonna help. And I feel better just being able to get this stuff out. And I know it's difficult for people to process, but I do sessions, so if this went over a lot of people's heads, I do astro readings, astrology readings, tarot readings, clairvoyant readings, and I can really help you to integrate this information and to really wake up and to really stand in your power. And you can find me on Facebook under Laura Eisenhower, and my contact information is there. You can message me if you're interested in getting a session. So great to talk to you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, and people, I encourage people to really, follow your wisdom and to look you up and pursue those readings and get in touch and they can talk to you and contact you, and hopefully there'll be more other people who want to get involved in interviews and stuff. It's a wonderful thing.
Excellent. Well, great. So you and I will be in touch, and have a wonderful evening, and thanks everybody for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Laura.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.